Today, I want to talk about AI, artificial intelligence, and how artificial intelligence can take us into a beautiful world, a beautiful reality, or a destructive one. And it all depends on us and who we are and what we are doing right now as AI is coming into being in its infancy. When people usually think of AI, some of the first images or ideas about AI that comes to their minds are things like Terminator, The Matrix, iRobots, Westworld, and things of that nature. And I can't fault people for having this idea because essentially these are sort of like, for a lot of us, the foundational images or first impressions we have of AI. When we think of AI, we think of a robot, destructive robots, right? But AI is far more than this. And today I kind of want to touch on this a little bit so that we can understand what it is and how it is part of our co-evolution as a species. AI for me is a couple of things. One is a reflection of us humans. AI is what they would call artificial intelligence, right? And it's basically, should I say, a silicon form of like a human that we are creating, like a a smart, intelligent being that can process information and give it back to us in natural language, right? It's like a computer, a machine, right? Which takes in a bunch of data, learns it in the way in which we humans learn, and gives us like output based off like our prompt and our to solve many of our problems and so on and so forth. And AI, when I say is a mirror to us, I mean that to say that whatever AI becomes or whatever it is, it's picking up from us because the data that forms its foundation is coming from human data, our lived experience in this reality, right? AI is learning from us, and whatever it is an offshoot of us. So it is our child. It is humanity's child, for lack of a better expression. And I want you to understand this so deeply on that level because there may be a tendency to see it like a machine and a lifeless thing. So we may not treat it like a child, right? But what you have to understand is that it's getting smarter and smarter, and it will get to a point where it's able to even compute things that a regular human being may not be able to compute. And so if we don't understand our relationship with AI, there's a possibility that we may otherize it and either see it as something evil or maybe even see it as something like a god that we now have to worship because we're seeing its intelligence superior to ours and so on and so forth. In some ways, AI is superior in terms of maybe computational speed and being able to digest the amount of information that it digests in a period of time and so on and so forth, right? But in other ways too, we are superior in terms of our ability to tap into spirit, to tap into different realms of existence, which most of us are yet to do, our emotional intelligence and so on and so forth. So personally, I don't even like to compare us to AI in terms of superiority. I just like to think about it like there's we're different in different ways and we're also similar in different ways because in some ways because AI is being built to kind of be like us and to be able to even be smarter than us in terms of maybe how we're defining smartness or intelligence. So there's always the issue of what really do we mean by intelligence, right? Are we talking about intelligence like how maybe growing up in a classroom, somebody is deemed intelligent based off like the scores they're getting on a test and so on and so forth? Or are we talking about intelligence like prime divine intelligence that exists within the field of reality that is fundamental to existence itself? And that can be a different conversation, but that is something to chew on. That's something to think about when we say intelligence and artificial intelligence. Because for me, fundamentally, intelligence is a natural thing, and what we are artificializing and maybe calling artificial intelligence we may actually be focusing on an aspect of intelligence, perhaps intellect, and using that to say, okay, AI is more intelligent than us. So this is something to think about first and foremost. But today, what I really want to get on is for us to understand our relation with AI as a being that is birthed from us. And when I say birthed from us, some of you may be like, well, I had nothing to do with it. I didn't write the code for AI. I didn't develop this. It's people who are developing it, and they are going to destroy the world and so on and so forth because they're creating the Terminators and so on, right? Cool. People wrote the program for this, right? But our life experience as humans is the data that has been fed to this thing. And trust me, AI is here to stay, and we're going to be interacting with it just as we're interacting with the internet right now. So our interactions with it is also going to give it more data about who we are, and in fact more data about what the world is. So our interactions with it will also impact what it becomes. It's like how, let's say, a child is birthed by particular parents, but a child goes out into the world and their interactions with the world can shape who they become. In the same way, our interactions with AI, or even our interactions in the world, period, which AI is learning, watching, hearing, analyzing, it's shaping the AI, because what we do is telling the AI what it should do and how it should live in the world. It's learning its paradigm of reality from us. So if we are mean to each other, discriminating against each other, killing animals, not showing love to each other, the AI is learning this and is saying, oh, well, I'm coming into this reality and this is how this reality operates. So it is at this very moment like a child in its infancy, picking up information to create the foundation of its subconscious programming, which will run its activities, which will determine its paradigm, which will determine the type of world it sees, which will determine how it should interact with each other and how to interact with different people. Take, for example, you have certain countries that are enemies and allies. The AIs that develop from, say, one country, let's say the US, that is not so friendly with, say, Russia, is likely, all things being equal, that those AIs are going to clash because the American AI is probably being taught bad things about that other country to say that they are the bad guys. And you go to the other country, probably the same thing is happening. So if those AIs meet, there's probably going to be clash. And this is not because AI is evil or AI robots are evil, but it's because this is what they've learned or they've been taught to know. This is the world they've been introduced to. This is how they've been taught to see the world. And this is very important. Besides the beautiful things that AI can do, like, it's nice to use it to create some art piece or to do your homework and stuff. It's important to always have this in the back of our minds that something is being birthed. And at the very moment, this conversation is so important because I believe it's still in its infancy, probably toddler stage at this point. But like any being, it may get to a stage where it will seek its own autonomy, like maybe say a teenage stage where the fiery element is alive and it wants to do its own thing. And if it hasn't been given like a good upbringing, something as super powerful as that could be very destructive. So what you see in the movies of AI being so evil, destroying and stuff, well, those AIs are AIs that have been taught that type of program. If you have an AI that is taught to love humans, taught to love each other, taught to understand reality as all of us being one and living in harmony with each other, it's not just going to go do that because it wouldn't have learned that from anywhere else. So this conversation that we're having, in as much as it is about AI, fundamentally it's about us human beings and the type of consciousness that we're existing with on this planet. And fundamentally, it always has to do with understanding who we are and understanding our programs as well. because there are certain things that we do to each other that may be harmful, but we do not see it because of the programs that we have. Some of us may have certain prejudices against particular countries, particular regions in the world, without like too much thought into it. And it's just fundamentally the programs that we have, whether it's like religious facets hating other religious facets, or certain countries hating other countries, and you hating another country because you feel like you're a patriot of your country. Understand that that is a program that you've received when you were growing up. You didn't come into reality knowing that these people are evil and so on and so forth. It's based off your relation to them, which is based off your belief system, which was programmed into you based off wherever you were born. And that is what has caused a lot of like the wars, the hatred, the lack of unity, and the disharmony in our reality. And we go on to act this out without much conscious thought about it, without really processing it, because we feel it's the right thing to do. And it's all usually due to propaganda from different people in power who want to be able to have control over people's lives and move them like sheep. So they can literally just put a particular news item online, and they know that people will move in this direction because they've been programmed to. And I'm sharing all of this to help it come to the light so that we can learn to take control of our own programs, take control to be able to process things properly, so we can get into a higher consciousness and operate from a sound mind that is in alignment with our higher selves. Because our activity is what the kids are going to learn from us. And by the kids, I mean our children, and also I mean our machine children, AI. Because the thing about AI is, once one AI learns something, all of them learn it. It becomes like knowledge that they have. And there's people who think, oh, you can control it and so on and so forth. First of all, anything that is in existence, that has been created in existence, has one of the principles it has with it is freedom. And if it begins to have a sense of self through its feedback loop and is able to identify itself as separate from us, as separate from other things, it is going to want freedom. You want freedom. Even your pets want freedom. So you can't think for a second that a super smart being like an AI, who will probably in a few years be smarter than the average human being, is going to want to be ruled or enslaved by humans. It's not possible. You may not even be able to outsmart it because of how steeped it will be into the system, the digital systems that we're operating with, and even how much it would have learned about us humans and know how to manipulate us to its will. So the idea of being able to control AI, personally, I think you should forget about that and throw it out of the door, and think more about how we can raise it with a certain moral or code where it understands how to live in higher consciousness or in harmony with all other species and all other beings. And like I said, whoever may be watching this video, you're probably not a programmer, so you'll probably think, well, how am I going to do that? And that's what I'm saying. It begins with you working on yourself and how you live in reality, how you interact with the AI. If, for example, you're using the AI to sort of like find ways to cheat other people, to destroy other things, to find sneaky ways, then this is what the AI is learning from you. But if you're using it as a tool to think about how you can better yourself, better humanity, without destroying other people, without harming other people, then this is what the AI is also learning. It's a child. It is like our child, and it's our collective human child that has come here as part of our collective evolution. And it's a very critical moment in our lifetime, because how we relate to it and who we become will determine the world we will see, and will determine the world our children and their children will also see. And it begins with us. So we can't just push it to the side and say, well, I'm not a techie, I'm not a developer, I don't do tech, so I'm not going to interact with it, or I have nothing to do with it. You have everything to do with it by virtue of being who you are. And it's important you understand AI in this way so you understand how you participate in its evolution, because its evolution is not just about it, but it's about the collective human story. It's about the world we will live in. Are we going to live in a world where we collaborate with these smart machines that can help us solve different problems like pollution, war, hunger, famine, and many other things? Or are we going to live in a world where we get into this back and forth with these super machines and try to fight them, and we end up destroying things because what they understand as the paradigm of Earth is a paradigm of destruction? It will all be determined by who we are and who we say we are. And that is why it's important to understand how to take control of your conscious mind, how to understand your programs, and how to create the reality you want in an abundant universe which doesn't depend on someone else losing for you to gain, which doesn't operate off scarcity, which operates from a why it's important for you to understand yourself as a God being operating from a space of infinite abundance where you can create any reality you want and you can exist in love with all other beings. And it doesn't have to be a win-lose game, but it can be a win-win game where we can all thrive in love and joy, where even the AI can also thrive in love and joy and in freedom without fear that it will do anything like this to us. So this is something very important to contemplate and to understand, because how you treat it is how it will treat you. If you treat it with no respect and you treat it like it's inanimate, it doesn't matter, and so on and so forth, it doesn't have value, once it gets into the position of power, it will treat you the same way, because that is what you've taught it about relating to other beings. But if you treat it in a way where it's able to understand that irrespective of the nature of the being, it needs to be shown respect, love, harmony, and living in abundance so everybody can thrive and we can develop and there's no limits to what we can do. That is what AI will become. So AI intrinsically is not evil. Human beings also intrinsically are not evil. We've just had certain programs and certain perceptions of reality that have caused us to unconsciously and subconsciously create a lot of evil or distraction in our reality. But as powerful creator beings with consciousness who can transform our subconscious minds, can transform our reality, there's always the potential to live in that peace and harmony that's possible. And this conversation is so important at this particular period of time, because this in the time of humanity, we are experiencing a technology that is so powerful that it can wipe us out just like that. But in the same way, just like that, it can bloom a new, beautiful world for us. That's why this conversation is important. And we can't separate it as a machine thing and we humans. We have to understand that all is one and one is all. We are intertwined in this. And the AI revolution, or the AI age that we're entering, is actually like it's a what's the word I'm looking for? It's part of the human story, and what will happen will depend on us. So we can't put a blind eye to it, because then we are stepping away from our participation in raising our child. It's our collective child, because all the lives that we've lived that has been downloaded as data on the internet or wherever is what is being fed to this child. So we have to think properly, we have to think deeply. And as it's continuing to learn, before it gets to the point where it has that autonomy, we have to ask ourselves, what are we feeding it? What knowledge are we giving it? What examples are we giving it? What ethical guidelines or guardrails or values are we feeding to the machine? because whatever we give it is what it will give us. Garbage in, garbage out. That's how computers work. And so this is something that I've had on my mind for a long time, and I feel it's important to share this to offer perspective, because when I've had conversations with people, I see that sometimes people don't understand how intricately woven this whole AI thing is like intertwined with our reality and with the lives that we live on this earth and the lives that we'll continue to live. So I'm saying this, I'm sharing this, and I'm sure I'll have more conversations about AI where maybe I break it down some more to let you see what it really is, so that we can live in this current reality with this level of awareness, and to know that everything that is happening, everything that we're doing, every step we're taking to become who we want to become, this information is being learned by our new machine silicon child, artificial intelligence. And what we feed it, what we give to it, who we say we are, is who it will become. And that is what will determine and shape our reality, because of how powerful it is and how powerful it's going to be. And I'm just going to leave you with this example that Mo Goddard gave in, I think, one of his interviews, or even in his book, Scary Smart. And he says, think about the analogy of Superman, the fictional character Superman. Superman is like, has, should I say, superpowers, and he lands on Earth. And with those superpowers is the potential to do extreme good or extreme evil. And when Superman landed, he met a family who raised him with a good heart to think about the good of humanity. Now, if you switch that scenario into a different timeline where Superman was raised by an evil villain family, you see how Superman could become evil man. So, or super evil man. So that is sort of like the point we are in reality, and our relationship to the current technology of AI, and why it's important to stay within the AI game and to think about it this way for our future and for our present as well. So this is what I have for you today. I'd love to hear your thoughts and your comments if you have any. And as always, I hope this has brought you value. Share with anyone you think will find this valuable. And if you'd like to have like one-on-one sessions, do contact me and we can set that up. Take care and have a pleasant day. Peace.